to another edition of the My WHIM Life show, where we use wisdom, humor, and inspiration and motivation to help you live a life you dream of. Today I have with me a wonderful woman that I was introduced to for her inspiring story, not only on a personal level but a business level, Miss Dawn Kerby.
Hello.
Hey. Why don't you just start us off by telling everyone a little bit about you?
Okay, this is always on the spot. Well, my name is Dawn Kerby. I am a single mother. I have a background in risk management in the insurance industry, pharmaceutical sales, and most recently I have a sun care brand that I created with the help of chemists and have developed. It's a mineral sun care line. I also happen to be legally blind. I was diagnosed with a retinal degenerative disease 19 years ago, and so I had the foreshadow that I would be slowly losing my vision. And for my diagnosis, which is called retinitis pigmentosa, it's a peripheral vision situation. So many of your viewers will be familiar with macular degeneration, which is the loss of central vision. Retinitis pigmentosa happens to be the loss of the peripheral vision. So when you hear tunnel vision, that would accurately describe the progress of my vision.
Yeah. So you literally just kind of see in that narrow field right in front of you is all you have.
Yes.
So.
And the human body is simply amazing, and specifically the brain. I feel blessed in that my vision loss has been micro changes over the years. So it's really interesting how the mind adjusts and how the body adapts as the vision is lost. When people are asking, well, what are you seeing? What is that like? I liken it to, maybe you gain a quarter pound every year, and as those pounds add up, next thing you know, you have a bigger size of jeans, and you're like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Slowly, but it's the cumulative effect.
That's so fascinating. My mother had macular degeneration, so I was definitely familiar with the opposite and losing that center vision, but she was able to drive for a really long time, keeping that peripheral. And I know in talking in previous conversations that has been something that you had to lose.
Oh man, yes.
Yeah. What was that like? Because that's like your independence, your freedom.
Yes.
So it's got to be such a hard adjustment.
It was huge. Honestly, it was a huge adjustment. At the time that I was notified that I would no longer be driving, which is a little bit of a funny story that I'll share briefly, but I was in pharmaceutical sales, which you have a company car, and your job is to interact with all of your customers face to face, office to office. So I was in my car all day, bouncing from office to office, appointment to appointment, doing evening events, interacting with the consumer, educating, because I launched my sun care line, my primary income with my pharmaceutical employment was not necessarily accepting of that new road I was taking, or the side hustle that I had put out there in front, and they had requested, knowing that I did that because I was losing my vision, and it was not a secret. I'm not a very secretive person, so everybody knew. You walk into a cocktail hour, and I've got the elbow of a girlfriend navigating dark spaces, because part of the retinitis pigmentosa is also night blind. It's the light receptors dimming. Think of like a dimmer switch, so I have less light coming in all the time than everybody else.
Right.
So anyway, I go and see an eye doctor in Salt Lake City, and he says to me, "You're not still driving, are you?" I said, "Well, of course I'm still driving." And he's like, "Let me rephrase. You are not driving anymore, okay?" And I went into this whole bargaining thing with him. Well, what if it's just mornings and groceries, or honestly, total bargaining. And then he's like, "Let me put it this way. If your family contacts me and they're concerned for your safety because you are not heeding my recommendation. He says, I do have the power to have your license revoked.
Yeah.
So anyway, that, when I was diagnosed, which was back in 2001, long time ago,
Yeah.
and they tell you your diagnosis, and I had this for some time, I just didn't have a name for it, and I read what it was about, and I was like, it was not a big deal to me, because I was like, oh, yeah, of course that's me. But then when you read that someday you will go blind or legally blind or become blinder or however you want to put adjectives onto it, it's like, so, like I'm always living for today, for now or whatever.
Yeah.
So when someday happened, I was not completely ready for someday to have been that
Already.
day. Yeah. So I had, my son was only in 6th grade. I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
I did have a sister who was living in town, and because I was also going to be ushered out of that industry because I was no longer driving, that was not fit for duty anymore, so I was about to lose my income.
Yeah.
And so I was going to cut my income by about 70% and now have to incur the expense of taxis or however I was going to get around. So anyway, I prepared, but I didn't prepare. I prepared financially, but psychologically, having to relearn all of that. And we did a lot of rides with my son's teammates and getting him to practices. And, luckily in a community like this, so much camaraderie, and your tribe kind of rallies around you. And my son, for the most part, did not have to skip a beat. You always want your kid's life to remain unscathed, steady Eddie. You don't want turbulence coming in and upsetting their world. It's your issue. It doesn't have to be their issue.
Yeah.
So it was a big workaround psychologically. A lot of introspective time. My life was going 100 miles an hour all the time to, my brakes got hit hard, and how you fill your time during the day. And I had friends going, oh my God, that's so awesome. Like, I would be working out all the time, and I'm like,
really? No, you wouldn't.
I mean, it's a nice idea. So, now, I love to walk for exercise. I do a lot of walking in my neighborhood. I set my garage up with free weights. I love to, lift weights and stuff. I began creating my life around my home. I made my home my comfort space, my safe space.
Sure.
I spent a lot of time with gratitude. All of a sudden sitting in my backyard and observing the trees and the grass and feeling the breeze on my skin, and grateful that I still do see, and that, there's always so much to be grateful for all the time. So I just kind of went more inward and dug a little bit deeper. I've always been a glass half full person.
Yeah.
The things you can't change, I don't really want to waste much time on or bemoaning anything. It's all about making the most of what you do have now, and then picturing forward. What do things look like? What do you want them to look like? Having the courage to reinvent yourself, and being lucky that you can.
Yeah.
So many people don't have the opportunity to pivot and reinvent themselves. Maybe they do, but maybe psychologically they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I was placed in a situation that now you get to reinvent yourself, and it's not I have to, it's I get to. Because really you are in charge of everything. I mean, I'm not a blind woman. I'm a woman who happens to be legally blind.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in that.
I agree. I think the mindset behind that is 100% the reason that you have been able to continue to be successful and raise an amazing son and really put yourself in a position to continue to do things when others would have been like, well, what's the point? There's nothing left. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, and luckily, right, I'm losing my vision, but I'm not losing my brain.
Yeah.
I'm not losing my physical mobility. I have my health. Mm-hmm. It was an interesting thing because when your friends through word of mouth find out there's a loss or a tragedy or it's a life-changing event,
you bet,
to all of a sudden not be driving, people don't always know how to address that. So I got a phone call from a childhood friend that I've stayed in touch with all these years, and she was hesitant, and she was like, so Dawn, I heard you're not driving anymore. And by the time we got done talking, she says, oh my God, I wish I would have called you sooner. You've somehow made me feel happy for you that you're going blind. Like you've turned this into a good thing. Like we should be celebrating, right? And I, because my thing was, well, I was, maybe I shouldn't have been driving sooner. Like acknowledging that maybe I pushed it. I'm so lucky there wasn't a car accident, that somebody was injured. I wasn't injured from being an insurance agent, understanding risk management and the liability that goes with that. Oh my God.
Right.
How horrible would that have been to have to live with all the way around? And anyway, but yeah, it is what it is, right? I don't have to like it because I don't like not driving.
Right.
In fact, for the first few years, it's been 7 years now that I've not been driving, but for the first few years as a passenger in the car, I'd be like, I can so do this. Like I can see everything. And my son would roll his eyes at me and my dad would say, right, Dawn, kind of thing like that. My family uses a lot of humor and tough love. Like if it needs to be said, it's going to be said. Nobody tiptoes around the issues in my family. And it's just been in the last few years, I'm like, yeah, I definitely shouldn't be driving.
Yeah.
I run into things, or, my folks and my son will go, can you see this? Can you see this? Doing the fingers. I'm like, no.
Nope.
They're like, kid.
Not even a little.
Not even a little. Yeah, you are not even there. I don't see you sitting there.
Yeah.
So,
So interesting.
It is interesting. And it is even interesting for me sometimes too, because I drop something on the ground and I'm looking around and I'm like, seriously, I heard it drop. I know it's in here, but I don't see it. Right. So I'll back up. I'll go to the other end, to say of the kitchen, and I'll look like this. And the window of what I see widens the farther away I get.
Sure.
And they call it, it's not really a clean loss of vision. They call it islands of vision. So you have a blind spot here or here. So sometimes I just have to back up to find what I dropped. I almost always find things.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll say to my son, hey, will you get in here? I need to borrow your eyes for a few minutes. I dropped on the floor. He's like, Mom, it's right there. I'm like, yeah, I don't see that. I didn't see it. I do now. Thanks for pointing it out. It's bizarre. Sometimes there's some mind tricks that play, and then I'll just shake my head and be, dude, yeah, that's definitely wasn't there when I looked last time. So it is a little strange. So, but you gotta have humor too. Like
you have to. Yeah, I think laughter is one of the most important things in any kind of a recovery or overcoming or whatever. Like if you can't laugh at yourself and be able to, let some of the frustration go, you're gonna be real sad.
Well, and not to take yourself too seriously, and that's with everything in life. Have a little humor, have a little humility. We're all gonna be equipped with some challenges in our life.
Yeah.
What they are and what they're going to be down the road, we don't get to know that.
Yeah.
So having some resilience and some bounce back and some fortitude and some to get this done one way or the other. It's all in that human spirit. People get through crazy things. Yeah. And I do believe we're never given more than we can handle. Yeah. And I also believe that, because every individual is working through their own thing, it can always be worse. Somebody might look at your situation and think, oh, thank God I'm not going blind. Like, I don't know what I would do if I couldn't just get in my car and go. And I guess I should add on this interaction here is that personality-wise, I am a thrifty person. Yeah. I saved, which is how I had the money to start that business. I saved, which is how I was able to just reshuffle my financial deck when I was losing 70% of my income and still be fine. Yeah. So the idea, I don't spend a ton of money on Uber. I go through this needs versus wants in my mind. Like, is this critical? Is this not critical? Is it worth the spend to me? Is it not? Because quite frankly, I like having a savings account. Yeah. I'm a debt-free person. I believe in that type of lifestyle. I don't mind making investments, but I don't ever charge a vacation. I don't ever if it can't get paid for, it's a want, not a need. Yeah. And so because of that, when this all went down, I knew I was going to be fine no matter what. So it's about planning and making the most of all the time, like living below your means.
Right. So talking about that shift,
Yes.
one of the most interesting, because I'm a mother too,
Mm-hmm.
one of the most interesting things I would have thought would be the way that your relationship, with your son pivots, or how that has to look, especially with him being, at like junior high age. That's when all of the emotions are going crazy, and literally everything is changing for him at the exact same time that everything is changing for you and your lives together. Like, how did you two navigate that?
It's tricky. You honestly, as the parent, you just do your best to make sure that their life is uninterrupted. But the truth is that kids ride the same ride you're on. Whether you think you're shielding them or not, trust me, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
They know. And it's been just he and I since he was 17 months old. So whether I like it or not, he feels my vibe.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to keep together, and I'm maybe not doing a great job of it, he feels it.
For sure.
We didn't really talk about it going through it, but it was hard on him.
Yeah.
He went with it, and for the most part didn't have to be interrupted too much. But as he began driving, and because a lot of kids are like, I can't wait to drive. My son, it takes him a while on change. Like, I teed it up. I'm like, dude, you're gonna be driving. Like, all your friends are going to be wishing they were you. So then when he had the learner permit, he drove to everything, and I was with him. Like, he had to do it, and we drove all the time like that. And so when it came time for him to have to do some of my errands or whatever, or not have to, but it was my expectation, he wasn't super keen on it.
Sure.
So there was definitely some conflict with him taking on more adult responsibilities at an age way pre-adult.
Yeah.
And then after his first year of college and come home, he's like, hey mom, you need something from the grocery store? So after being away, I think he became more appreciative of the situation and less angry about it. And I assumed some anger just because of his reaction when I would ask him to do certain things, which was really hard for me to not have him just accept it with a big bow on it, right?
Right, because you're positive. You're like,
we're
going to take it as it comes,
and it is
we'll
what
make
it
the best
is.
of it.
And it is what it is, and we're a family, and you're going to have to step up too, kind of thing. And I think again, after he was gone and came back, he's like, dude, I don't have it so bad. I know my mom can't drive, but we got some good things going on. So, so, we navigated it, hitting every pothole as it came.
Yes.
And do our best to dodge the potholes when we could see them far enough in advance. But, it was mostly positive, but just like when you ask your kid to clean their room and they're like, ugh, really?
Right.
They don't see the benefit in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as a parent, you don't really have to explain what the benefit is, but it was pretty obvious we needed food.
Right. You're like, sorry, dude.
And I'm like, listen, because my sister was in town through the first couple of years, and once a week she'd come and pick me up, and it would be like a sister thing. It was a set touch point for us, and I was really grateful to her. She's my younger sister and has no children, so wasn't sure, how you're going to reciprocate the payback. But I think she really acknowledged that helping her older sister, who she didn't really always think needed help in that way, it brought us closer, interestingly. So once a week we would do groceries and we'd get sister time and hang out. And so there was that.
I love it. In the transition, you had started this Sunscreen, basically a sun care business. You've been working on this before you ever lost your job.
Yeah.
And that probably was that you probably had no idea the value of what you were working on in that beginning process, I'm guessing.
I couldn't have. Yes, that's so true. In the industry that I was in, and specifically for the company that I worked for, it was not uncommon for my coworkers to have side hustles.
Sure.
A lot of them owned rental properties, some started gyms, another had a clothing line. Not just little side hustles. These people were tackling some big things. And I was in the anti-aging segment of pharmaceuticals, so I was exposed to high-end skincare. I was exposed to Botox and medical procedures from an anti-aging perspective. And I'd started in that industry about age 35. So as a woman starts being more aware of the aging process with their own bodies as well.
Sure.
So over time, and I've always loved learning the whys behind things. So Botox, how it works, why it works. Skincare, how it works, why it works. And even prescription medications for blood pressure or cholesterol. One of the biggest things that I treasured in those education for those jobs was being taught a deep and narrow piece of information. Blood pressure, how that works, all the medications around that, and then the class of drugs that are, those are very valuable information in knowing those things.
Sure.
You can apply that to real life, obviously. But as I could feel or sense kind of my world getting narrower, if you will, I kind of started wondering, well, okay, if I was going to reinvent, and someday that will probably happen, someday.
Yes, someday.
Not the day it was, but someday. I love the beach, I love the sun, and maybe even me losing the lightness, the darkness kind of closing in. I crave the sun. I'm like the lizard, who wants to be on that hot rock kind of thing. I thought, well, maybe sunscreen. That seemed kind of something that might be interesting. And then maybe I would have to be in tropical places to conduct business. That seemed like a fun little dream.
Sure.
So I had a girlfriend who had worked for a mineral sun care company, and she'd been harping on me about the difference between synthetic sunscreens and mineral sunscreens. So I had a little bit of entry into that understanding of those different active ingredients. And so like, all right, well, if you're going to do something like that, you have to figure out which part of the pie you're going to be into. So I did some deep research, and I Googled all the active ingredients, and I came to find out I stumbled across a study that National Geographic had published. I want to say, don't quote me on the year, although I'll throw it out there. It seemed like it was around 2009, talking about a possible correlation between synthetic actives and sunscreens and the bleaching and killing out of the coral reefs, which is a problem for tourism, but even more than that, all these different fish in the ecosystem, the biodiversity in the coral reef area. If you lose those coral, you also lose the fish. And then you lose the fish that feed the fish, and the fish that eat those fish, and the fishing industry. So for all islands and substance, circle of life is a problem. It's not just about wearing the sunscreen at the beach and obviously getting in the water around it, but you go home and you wash it off, and all that flows into the rivers flow into the ocean. It's just like this big circle. And highest percentage of sunscreen used, manufactured, and sold around the world were synthetics. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's noteworthy.
Right.
And then the step further for me was learning the difference from how they work on people. You buy a sunscreen to protect yourself from the sun, but here's the kicker. Synthetics, which are anything besides the zinc and titanium dioxide, they lack photostability. Photostable means that it maintains its complete integrity under UV exposure.
Oh, gotcha.
So as a synthetic active in all the sunscreens that we grew up with, minus zinc for lifeguards, right? They start breaking down under sun. I'm like, well, that's ironic.
Right.
You buy it to protect yourself. So at what rate does it break down? How fast is it breaking down? What kind of protection do you have? And how would you even know with the incidence of skin cancer going up? It's like, okay, well, so minerals, they're 100% photostable. Well, obviously, I'm going to go mineral. Let's do mineral, because that's not only best for people, it's best for the environment. So then I went and I bought a bunch of mineral sunscreens that were commercially available on the market, and most of them, all of them, were heavy, greasy, pasty, heavy white cast, and very earthy smelling. Like, oh, so that's why mineral sunscreens aren't really part of the market, besides just niche.
Right.
So like,
they don't smell good.
They don't smell good. They don't look
good.
They don't feel good. Like, if the experience is crummy, very, very few consumers, as we're all creatures of habit, are going to pick a product that doesn't have a good experience. So I set aside a specific amount of money. This was going to be my startup money, And then I didn't really think that I would not have my primary income, so
Sure.
the idea was to use that income, because remember I live below my means, to feed the beast. I called it to feed the beast. So immediately upon launching the sunscreens, the job ended, so my business model shifted a bit. But back to the sunscreen piece, so I had to call all over the country looking for manufacturers that were comfortable working with mineral sunscreens. Sunscreens are a niche. They are FDA regulated, so any manufacturer that is manufacturing sunscreens have to be rated and do all the red tape and paperwork that come with filing, testing, all of that. There weren't that many. Everybody knows synthetics because that's what's been around. That's what we've been working with forever, or we're using forever.
Yeah.
And then finding a manufacturer right in Boise.
Wow.
So it's like it's meant to be kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it took a year and a half to get the formula light enough, the spreadability, the water resistance, before we put it through to third-party FDA testing. But that's kind of the story of how sunscreen came about, why mineral. My goal was to create a mineral sun care. Sun care being not just sunscreen, but filled with antioxidants, so additional level of anti-aging protectiveness for the skin, etc. And then high level water resistance for a mineral sunscreen to work effectively. It has to stay on.
Right.
It doesn't show up in the bloodstream like synthetics do. They actually have to stay on the skin to reflect the sun off of your skin. Made friends with a bunch of guys and gals in Puerto Rico that surf and Rincon, Puerto Rico. So I sent lab samples back and forth, getting their feedback. Again, this is supposed to be reef safe product, so super water resistant, active, and pleasant. So we did coconut fragrance in the sunscreen, and that's what happened. That was the whole reason behind the sun care line. It's called S4 Sun Care. It stands for sun, surf, sand, and snow. So sunscreen for year round. And several build-out pieces to come down the road, but starting with the very water-resistant sun care pieces, so that if you're going to be sweating or playing in the water extensively, that sunscreen will stay on. You can sweat through it. The water should bead up on the product itself, so that you know it's still there. And anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I had a blast doing it.
Well, and I love several pieces of this. I love that you took the environment into consideration, because even on our most recent vacation, we went to Mexico and we were going out on a sailboat, and they were very adamant when we went through to the boats, to the pier, that we not use any synthetic sunscreen, so I think.
Did they use that word synthetic?
They did.
Okay, wow, they even know the language.
Yeah. So they were very adamant about that, not to put on any of that synthetic sunscreen, because we were going to be getting in the water, and so I've kind of seen the real world adaptation of that, and it's nice in a tourist type of environment to see that they're starting to talk about that and move in that direction. And I love that you found a Boise manufacturer. Like, there are so many things that are going on in this area that people have no idea is happening. So
well, and it's hard to find a manufacturer. A lot of their buildings aren't even labeled. They just kind of exist there. And interestingly, though, the manufacturer that I started with for the sunscreens ended up saying after our first run that they were not interested in OTC anymore, which is over the counter, which is government regulated. So they handed me off to another manufacturer in Idaho Falls who do my stick sunscreens.
Nice.
And then I've since learned we have another manufacturer here that do sunscreens that I didn't know about. Again, even being in the industry, you don't know who is and who isn't. So I ended up, and then I ended up having to find yet another for one of my sunscreens, clear out for Miami. So you kind of have to go with who does what the best.
You bet.
But I still have my lotions, all my other products with the sunscreens are done actually here in town.
Yeah.
So I try to keep things local where I can.
That's awesome.
Yes, I mean, it makes sense, obviously.
Yeah.
Why would you outsource clear on the other side? You gotta pay for shipping to get all that stuff back here anyway. It's not really cost advantageous to do that. So staying local has multiple benefits to staying as close to home as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I also love that that you've really focused on the fact that it is year round, just because in Idaho we have all 4 seasons. We have a full winter with skiing and I have definitely seen people come back from the ski hill just red as a lobster on their cheeks because that's the part that was exposed,
and being the type of if you're a kamikaze skier, if you're more of a leisure skier, I feel like there's these different categories on the ski hill, but the sun reflects right off the snow, so even in a low,
it's like those days when they put a tinfoil, underneath their chin, trying to get
totally. Yeah, it bounces right off the surfaces. Same with water skiing. You're gonna have it up high coming at you, but bounces off the water surfaces to you. If you're a runner, it's bouncing off the pavement. If you're a motorcycle rider, same thing. I mean, UV's all around us, and here's an interesting thing. UVA, UVB, that's considered broad spectrum.
Right.
So UVB are the burning rays. Those are shorter rays. UVA are the aging rays. Those are long rays that actually come through your window.
Oh.
So even for like truck drivers, the window side, the driving side, oftentimes the left side of the face for long haul truck drivers have aged considerably more than the right side of the face. So that's why a lot of dermatologists and estheticians and skincare experts, they want you to wear, at least on your face, every single day. Yeah. And so I guess having said that, ladies, mineral on your face, because it doesn't matter how long it's been exposed to the sun, if you have a mineral sunscreen on your face and you've not wiped it off, sweated it off, or oily skinned it off, you protected. But if a lot of gals have said, I've got SPF on my moisturizer, I doubt it's mineral. And halfway through the day, most women aren't going to go wash their face and reapply everything. Right. So if you really want the aging aspect, anti-aging aspect of sunscreen for your face, it's got to be mineral.
Yeah. Well, I know you have, besides sunscreen, you do have some other lotions and stuff. Have you moved into, say, a mineral-based moisturizer that would be valuable? Or is that something on your horizon?
Possibly. I can tell you that what I have done coming into sweating months, like walking outside, gardening, anything outdoor, I put a little teeny pea size of my SPF, water resistant, and I'll drop a couple of my makeups into it, like my pigment. So any pigment that isn't powder. Blend it in, put it all over your face, and I don't even have to powder up or anything because the pigment's in it. It's water resistant. It's there from morning to night. Done.
Yeah, well, and I actually really like that because I know the foundation color that I use in the summer is not the same foundation color that I use in the winter because my skin tone changes. So having that flexibility actually is a really great idea.
Absolutely, because then you are tailoring it to what your pigment is going to be. So literally, and it doesn't take much. I don't like, the old adage, slip, slop, slap. You don't have to slip, slop, or slap mineral sunscreens. Just put it on. It doesn't have, you don't have to create that white cast. I spoke with a lifetime surfer on the North Shore in Hawaii, on Oahu, just a couple months ago. He owns Free Surf magazine, and we were interacting on my sunscreens. And he's like, are you sure you don't have to put, I want to look white? And I'm like, no, you don't have to look white for it to work. I get that that's where you've come from, but that's not where you have to be. Like, you don't have to use half a bottle to be SPF protected, which you enter in the sunscreen stick. You can go heavy or light on the sunscreen stick, but if you're surfing or whitewater rafting or doing something where you're in a lot of heavy water, even the water park, you can put that on heavy. If you put it on heavy, you're going to have more of the white cast, but you put it on once and you're not going to have to put it on for the next 2 weeks if you don't shower. Which is awesome for your little ones. Honestly, you almost want a white cast on your little people because you know it's there and you know it's working. And the stick, those little guys are like, I I do it myself. They don't want you wiping on their face, so give them the stick. Let them draw to their little heart's content.
Yeah.
Keep them protected. So yeah, but you don't have to wear you don't have to look white to have it work.
Yeah.
It's the main thing. And the whole idea for creating a mineral sunscreen that has easy slide, rubs in easy, it's not a lot of extra work, is to create an experience more similar to the completely see-through of the synthetics, so that you move into the mineral. I think it's a growing trend. In fact, I know it's a growing trend. More consumers are ingredient knowledgeable.
Oh, for sure.
More and more consumers are interested in a cleaner product, a natural product, and I really, with the changes, you're going to see a lot more mineral companies, small startup, independently owned, we call them indie companies.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot more, and a lot more education, a lot more noise, because none of us have the same big box pocketbooks, for national advertising and getting the word out. So having more options is good for the mineral marketplace, because the more exposure consumers have to it, the more interested they're going to be in dabbling and trying this one or trying that one to find the one that works best for them.
Yeah. From being someone who's been in sales pretty much my whole entire adult life, I can absolutely see how the transition from what you were doing before in pharmaceutical sales moves you with the level of dedication and motivation and stick with it that you have to have in either of those environments. But what do you feel are some of the most important skills that you developed in your sales career that really helped you to push your sun care line?
Well, what I was kind of taught, if you're going to create a brand of something, it needs to be defensible, meaning you need to be able to defend it in the marketplace. You need to niche or be different than something else. Like, what is different from your product than others, and why would somebody buy yours versus the competition? And again, the mineral sunscreens, to have them lighter and nicer smelling, they are more expensive than, say, the original mineral sunscreens. So like Badger comes to mind because they've been around for a very long time and are very established in the mineral market space. So why would somebody spend more for yours than Banana Boat or Hawaiian Tropic? And then you have to understand the ingredients behind it. Like, that's my thing. It's like, people ask some very specific questions. Why?
Yeah.
So to be the best, you have to master the basics.
Yeah.
So you really have to know your space.
Yeah. So that knowledge base alone is probably
that knowledge base alone. Yeah. And I was recently approached by a manufacturer, a guy who'd spent the last 30 years in sun care. He had worked at Banana Boat. He worked at Ocean Potion. He worked everywhere, and he knew almost all the brands. But he was down, has a son going to school here at BSU. He saw my products at Idaho River Sports. He called wanting to talk to the owner. We got to visiting. I was asking some very specific questions. I said, "Do you mean you've tried my product?" He's like, "Well, yeah, down by Quinn's Pond down there, Idaho River Sports." And I'm like, "What are you doing in Boise?" And that's how I learned his son was here at BSU or whatever. And he said, "But one question for you. Do you own your formula?" And I said, "I do."
Yeah.
He's like, "What made you decide to do that?" And I said, well, if I was going to invest the time and money and effort to come to market with anything, I didn't want to be a me too.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like Sunbum, which super cute marketing, nice smelling product, is a me too.
Yeah.
So what consumers didn't understand, and that's okay if you didn't understand, is that it was just an expensive Hawaiian Tropic or Banana Boat. But marketing is awesome. Like, their marketing is awesome.
Right.
But at the same time, if there's ever an end game, if you ever want to have more than just your brand to sell, you need your own formula. It needs to be yours, and it needs to be unique. Because to me, it's more than a brand. It's defending the product itself.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell a me too. I wanted to sell a better than.
Yeah.
If you're gonna put the time into it, you need to have attributes to your product that make it better than the competitor, or else why would you buy that? How do you sell? How do you sell if you don't have a differentiator? So, yeah, understanding what your product is and why you did it, what it's for. It's not just another me too. So otherwise, I don't know how you differentiate besides your packaging.
And all of this was all done while you're being a single mom and
Yes.
losing your eyesight
Yes.
and losing your independence and
Well,
still
yeah.
in a space where creativity got to rule.
I had no idea that I was creative. None. I don't think of myself as creative. I don't draw. I think there are certain categories that you think of with creativity. I'm
Sure.
not an artist, but good gravy did I have a blast, creating. And I've got probably another 15, 20 products that I've already mapped out, the ingredients that I want in it, the names of the products, how they look and feel. Like I just, that's the most fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, creating is the most fun. I had no idea. And ingredients, I sign up for all these different ingredient magazines and stuff, and oh, what a geek am I? I mean, I go through like, oh my god, this would be so good in like an eye cream, and oh, this has to be in the next sunscreen.
Yeah.
Like anyway, I really do geek out over ingredients.
I love it. I'm absolutely inspired by you. I am
Thank you.
so excited that we got introduced
Me too.
and
Me
we've
too.
chatted since then, and I'm just so excited to be able to share you with my little corner of the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to do this, and it wasn't quite as scary as I thought it was going to be. So, and thank you for giving me a chance to talk about the sun care as well as navigating, major life changes, because anytime you have the opportunity to reinvent, you really should embrace that, because there's a lot of people out there who would love to and can't or don't or
Sure.
won't, or sometimes it's not courage that it takes, because sometimes you're thrown out there, but it's like, okay, make the most of it, let's do it. And it really is an opportunity, because being able to be the architect of today and tomorrow, and understanding that there's so much to be fortunate and grateful for in everybody's lives, starting with the basics. Be grateful for your health and make the most of every opportunity you have, or don't. But it's your life. So
Yeah.
be happy or be sad or be grumpy or feel sorry for yourself. But God, what a miserable place to be if you don't just embrace every opportunity that you have.
I totally agree. So tell me a little bit about where they can reach you at and find your sun care products.
Okay. Well, website www.s4suncare.com. I do have an online store, and then at the bottom of all the landing pages, you can find retailers. Click on Idaho. I have several retailers here locally, ranging from dermatologist offices to med spas, Albertsons, Marketplace on Fairview and Broadway, Idaho River Sports, Millie Grace. I've got a lot of really great vendors here in the valley that have partnered with me, that would work with me year round. So, yeah,
I love it.
thank you
So much.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the My WHIM Life show today. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of the goodness.